What if I told you that humanity has been living a lie about space exploration? That every single astronaut you've ever seen floating peacefully in space is actually trapped in an invisible prison? For over 60 years, there's been a secret lurking in the darkness above our heads, a deadly, invisible force field that surrounds our entire planet. It's been quietly murdering satellites, threatening astronauts, and keeping humanity locked in Earth's backyard. NASA knows about it. They've always known. But they don't want you to understand just how trapped we really are. This is the story they hoped you'd never hear. Welcome back to Planetary Possibilities. My name is Aria. Here's a disturbing fact. Every single human who has ever traveled to space, except for 24 people, has never ventured further than 400 miles from Earth's surface. That's roughly the distance from New York to Boston. In cosmic terms, we're talking about the thickness of an apple's skin compared to the apple itself. Those 24 people? They were the Apollo astronauts who dared to journey to the moon. But even they had to navigate through what scientists call one of the most dangerous regions in our solar system. A region that could kill you in minutes if you're not properly protected. So what is this invisible barrier that's been keeping humanity prisoner on our own planet? The year was 1958. The space race was just beginning, and America was desperate to catch up with the Soviet Union's stunning Sputnik success. Dr. James Van Allen, a physicist at the University of Iowa, had convinced NASA to include his experimental radiation detector on Explorer 1, America's first satellite. What Van Allen discovered would change everything we thought we knew about space travel. As Explorer 1 orbited Earth, something bizarre happened to his instruments. At certain altitudes, the radiation readings went completely haywire. Not because the equipment was broken, but because the radiation levels were so intense they overwhelmed the sensors. Van Allen had stumbled upon something that shouldn't exist according to the scientific understanding. These regions, now called the Van Allen belts, stretch from about 400 miles above Earth to roughly 36,000 miles out. To put this in perspective, if you could drive your car straight up into space, you'd hit the first belt in about 8 hours. But you'd need to keep driving for another 72 hours to clear the outer belt. And every mile of that journey would be bathed in radiation levels that would be lethal to human life. So what exactly makes the Van Allen belt so dangerous? Imagine Earth's magnetic field as a giant invisible net, and the Van Allen belts are where this net has caught some of the universe's most dangerous particles. High-energy protons and electrons from the solar wind and cosmic rays get trapped in these magnetic field lines, creating what scientists call a particle accelerator in space. These particles are moving at incredible speeds, some at nearly the speed of light. When they hit human tissue, they don't just cause radiation sickness. They literally tear apart the DNA in your cells, causing immediate cellular damage and almost certain death within hours or days. But here's where it gets really concerning. NASA has known about this problem for over 60 years, yet they rarely discuss it publicly. Why? Because the truth is inconvenient. The Van Allen belts represent one of the biggest obstacles to human space exploration that we've ever discovered. Every single crewed mission since 1958 has been carefully planned to either stay below the inner belt or find the narrow corridors where radiation levels are somewhat manageable. The International Space Station, for example, orbits at just 250 miles up, safely below the most dangerous radiation zones. This brings us to one of the most fascinating and controversial aspects of the Van Allen belts. How did the Apollo astronauts survive passing through them? This question has fueled decades of conspiracy theories, with some claiming the moon landings were faked precisely because the radiation would have been lethal. The truth is both more complex and more impressive than the conspiracies suggest. NASA didn't ignore the Van Allen belts. They engineered their way through them. The Apollo spacecraft was equipped with aluminum shielding, and mission planners carefully calculated trajectories that would minimize radiation exposure. But here's what NASA doesn't often mention. It was an incredible gamble. The Apollo astronauts were exposed to radiation levels that would be considered unacceptable by today's safety standards. They pass through the belts quickly, spending only a few hours in the most dangerous zones. But even that brief exposure increased their cancer risks significantly. Recent studies have shown that Apollo astronauts have experienced higher rates of cardiovascular disease, likely due to their radiation exposure. In essence, they were willing test subjects in humanity's first attempt to break free from Earth's radiation prison. Today, as we plan missions to Mars and beyond, the Van Allen belts remain a critical challenge. Modern spacecraft heading to deep space require massive amounts of shielding, adding weight, complexity, and cost to every mission. This is one reason why we send robots instead of humans to explore the outer planets. But there's another, more sinister implication that NASA rarely discusses publicly. The Van Allen belts are not static. They change based on solar activity. During periods of high solar activity, the belts expand and become more dangerous. During solar storms, they can extend all the way down to the altitude of the International Space Station. This means that astronauts on the ISS occasionally have to shelter in the most heavily shielded parts of the station during what NASA calls radiation events. These events can last for days, effectively trapping astronauts in a small, confined space until the danger passes. Even more concerning is what this means for future deep space missions. A journey to Mars would require astronauts to spend months in the radiation environment of deep space, far from Earth's protective magnetic field. The cumulative radiation exposure could be equivalent to getting hundreds of chest X-rays every single day. So how do we break free from Earth's radiation prison? Scientists are working on several revolutionary solutions. One promising approach involves creating artificial magnetic fields around spacecraft, essentially giving them their own miniature version of Earth's protective magnetosphere. Another approach involves developing new materials that can better shield against radiation, or even biological treatments that could help astronauts' bodies repair radiation damage more effectively. Some researchers are even investigating whether we could use the Van Allen belts as a source of energy, harvesting their trapped particles to power spacecraft. But here's the reality that NASA doesn't want to emphasize. We're still decades away from solving this problem. The Van Allen belts remain one of the most significant barriers to human expansion into the solar system. Every mission beyond Earth's immediate vicinity is a carefully calculated risk, balancing scientific goals against human safety. The Van Allen belts are both Earth's greatest protection and humanity's greatest prison. They shield us from the deadly radiation of space, but they also trap us in our cosmic neighborhood. Understanding them was one of the most important discoveries of the space age, but it also revealed just how dangerous the universe really is. The next time you see an astronaut floating peacefully in space, remember, they're not exploring the cosmos. They're living in Earth's backyard, protected by our planet's magnetic embrace. True space exploration, the kind that will take us to Mars and beyond, requires us to solve one of the most challenging problems in human history: how to survive in a universe that's trying to kill us. What do you think? Are the Van Allen belts humanity's greatest obstacle to becoming a spacefaring species? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed diving into this cosmic mystery, don't forget to subscribe to Planetary Possibilities for more explorations of our universe's hidden secrets. Until next time, keep looking up. Eep.